It's the Face to Face Podcast.
Hello, my name is Jada Walker. Today I'm going to be interviewing Lynnaia from the Neighborhood Safety Office. And today we have LayLay and Jada P on the podcast with us today. So I have a couple questions.
Okay.
What is your role in the mayor office?
Well, I actually work for the city. I work for Office of Neighborhood Safety, and we are actually an office, like a division, part of the city attorney's office. And in my role, I manage a neighborhood safety community council, which are council members that are actually like just community members. They're like your neighbors, your mom, your teachers, your doctors, and they all sign up to be on this community council so that they can have community buy-in and be able to talk about the issues that are going on in the neighborhoods, the issues that are going on around all communities in St. Paul, specifically public safety issues. And we get together, we talk about different policies that we can change, we talk about alternative public safety measures, working with the police department, the fire department, we talk about drug abuse and drug awareness, just anything that we can do. What is it that we can do as residents of St. Paul to make things better, make things safe?
Okay.
Did I give you too much?
No, I think it was just enough. How long have you worked for the neighborhood safety program for?
So I've been with the Office of Neighborhood Safety for 3 years. We started in 2022. But we actually didn't get any council members until 2023 because there was a process to it. We had to put out applications. We had to figure out how much grant funding we have, because another thing that we do is we put out programs, alternative public safety programs, and we partner with other community organizations to do the actual footwork, but we give them money so that they can do the work. So it took a whole year before we were able to get anyone on the council. But yeah, I've been there for 3 years.
So basically it's like people volunteer from the community for.
Mm-hmm. But guess what? They do get a stipend. So for every meeting that they show up to, they get a $50 stipend. And we do have youth members on the community too, because we want to make sure that we have a youth outlook on things, because there are things that you guys see as young people that we don't see in our age, right? And so you guys have different solutions. You guys have a better insight of what's going on inside the schools, what's going on at your rec centers, because you're the ones using those facilities most of the time. So we do have youth members, and it is a $50 stipend for every meeting that you show up to and do the work. So it's volunteer, but you get paid.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Can you give us a little background story of yourself?
Okay, so I am originally from St. Paul. I grew up in the Frogtown neighborhood. We had a house on Sherburne and Chatsworth. I used to go to West Minnie all the time and watch the football games and look at the boys. And my grandma lived on Oxford and Dayton. So then I'd get on my bike and go across the bridge, go across 94, and go hang out at my grandma's house with all my friends over there. I went to St. Paul Central is where I graduated. I won't say what year because I don't want you guys teasing me about being old.
I went there for my freshman year.
Just 1 year?
No, I only went there for 6 months, then I transferred here.
Oh, okay.
That was a while ago, in 2019.
Okay. I originally started off at Johnson. I was an East Side girl. I went to Johnson because even though I lived in Frogtown, I ended up going to Johnson because for junior high, I went to Murray, and I didn't do good there because I was acting up. So then they moved me to Hazel Park, and all the kids from Hazel Park went to Johnson. So I went to Johnson, but then I ended up at Central because that was where all my friends were from my neighborhood. So I went to Central. After high school, I went to College of Visual Arts because interior design is my first love, and that's really what I'm good at is art, painting, drawing, interior design. And then I started dispatching after that. I went to be a public safety dispatcher. I got into 911. I did that for 6 years. And then after that, I worked the night shift, and I was just like, God, if you please give me just a regular day shift job from 9 to 5, I will start going back to church. Because I couldn't spend 911 is 24 hours, you guys. So, like, you don't get holidays with your family, because if your shift says you have to be at work, it just is. And I worked 7 at night to 7 in the morning, and I was missing holidays with my kids, and it was horrible. I mean, like, the job was good and they paid really good, but the sacrifices that you make, not being able to, like, sleep like a normal person and be with your family, is horrific. So I actually started, I quit that job, and I ended up working at Metro Transit Police Department, and I did that for 10 years. And from there, I went to work for Department of Public Safety, working for the commissioner. I was the executive aide over there. And that's what I've been doing. And so it's like, when this job came up and I got a chance to work with, like, community and still do public safety, I was really excited, because one of the things that I noticed throughout my job, throughout my career, I guess I should say, community has a different outlook on things. And when you work in the facility, when you work in public safety, there are things that you see and things that you know that are different from the community perspective. And I would be a public safety worker while I was at work, but then when I would go home at night, I was a community member, and I saw things totally different from a totally different perspective. And I was like, I wish that there was some way that I could be myself, take my at-home self and be that person at work. You know what I mean? I could not really talk about, okay, this issue is going on in my community, and at work we need to do better, or we need to do something different, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I wanted the community to have a voice, because I wanted to have a voice. So when this job came up, I was like, yes, I finally get to work with community, represent community, and allow them to have their voice to come up with different perspectives and different programs and stuff like that for public safety. So, but outside of work, I've got 2 kids. I've got a 22-year-old and a 17-year-old, and I got a husband. I used to have a dog, but we don't have him anymore, and that's just what it is.
Typical life.
A typical life, regular life.
Okay. Can you give us your personal opinion about the Goals Not Gun campaign?
Well, working with the NSCC, we decided to launch the Goals Not Guns campaign because we realized that there's a lot of issues around gun safety and gun violence. And there's a lack of education in our schools. And we figure out that if we just talk about it more, and if we give youth the education that they need to make better and healthier decisions around gun violence prevention, that we can actually make an impact. So I feel like it's a really, really important program that we're implementing. We have an administrator, Charlie Adams. He comes out and he administrates entire, like, a week-long education curriculum right now, which talks about gun violence prevention, mental health, making safe choices, oh my gosh, so much stuff. Being a better community member, bullying, how to say no safely without the repercussions of dealing without having an altercation with someone. So there's all kinds of things that we touch on in that program, and then the kids get to design their own T-shirts around gun violence prevention with some sort of message against gun violence, right? And so I think overall it's just a really good program because it touches on all the basics, and they're not teaching that necessarily in the schools. There might be some talk about it, but they're not teaching that everywhere in the schools. And I think that sometimes when you implement something new, everybody doesn't necessarily gravitate towards it, right? Because they're kind of nervous about, what is it going to be? How are people going to think? Should we participate in this? Are they going to think we have a problem with gun violence at our school? That sort of thing. But it's more so about equipping our kids with the education around real life situations. Yeah, math is important, English is important, science is important, but math, English, and science is not going to save your life when you live in an urban community where gun violence is prevalent.
Do you think a lot of teachers in school doesn't pick up on the subject because it's a heavy topic?
I think so too. I do. I think that they're afraid to talk about it. But not talking about it doesn't solve a problem. And if you're not trying to solve the problem, you're part of the problem.
But then some of them probably feel like out of place because they probably never experienced of like an urban community or, you know, like seeing things that come in the community. So like them bringing into a bunch of kids that been through that type of stuff, so they probably just feel like out of place, like there's not their voice to speak on it.
Mm-hmm. But then that's why the Goals Not Guns campaign, this program has someone who does live in our communities and does deal with gun violence prevention and does have stories of gun violence in their past or in their life that can come in to talk about it. So the teachers actually don't have to. Now, at this point, the way we build the program, the teachers don't have to do the educational piece. They just have to be there to listen because part of their job is not just like coming in and teaching a curriculum. The teachers should be there to learn their students and try to make an impact on their life and understand their lives.
When we did the Goals Not Guns campaign, I think it was pretty good, especially the way that Jennifer broke it down. Mm-hmm. I think she did a good job teaching it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I enjoyed doing that campaign. I was one of the final 3.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that here at Face to Face, you guys are lucky to have the teachers that you do, because your teachers actually care. And I'm not saying most teachers don't care, but I'm saying that here at Face to Face, one of the things that I've noticed is your teachers are invested in you guys. They want you guys to succeed. They want you guys to be safe. You know what I mean? They want to see you show up every day. They want to see you try. And then they will alter their educational program or their hours around you so that you can succeed. And that's amazing. And I think that's why Jennifer was so good at what she did. But you guys are lucky because that's not at every single school.
Yeah, I didn't been to a lot of schools out here in St. Paul, so I can personally say that.
Mm-hmm.
If you had the opportunity to be mayor, would you be?
Ooh. So I thought about it. This is long before you guys' time, but Mayor Sharon Sales Belton was the first Black female mayor in Minneapolis, and it was many, many, many years ago. I'm not even going to try to say the right year because I'm just going to be wrong, and then everybody's going to be like, she's wrong. But it was many, many years ago. I was really young, and I remember watching her and saying, I want to be her one day. And I was at Department of Public Safety, and she called to set up a meeting with my commissioner, and I had a chance to talk to her. And when I talked to her, like even from me now being an adult, remembering how I felt when I was a little kid, I started crying, and I'm probably going to cry now. I was like, oh my gosh, because like this person that I admired so much, here we are like 15 years later, 20 years later, I get to talk to her. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so I did think at one time about being mayor. I thought about it, and I used to tell my husband it was going to be one of my endeavors, but I've learned that politics is different. Politics isn't always honest. You can feel a certain way and have dreams and want things to go better, and you can try to do your job based on your ethics, your morals, and your values. But there's always going to be something where someone within your party or someone within your office or someone within, who's head of your campaign they have a different agenda. And so sometimes you have to sacrifice what it is you really want to do for your community because someone else has a different agenda. And that's what I don't like. I don't like that politics isn't always honest. And so I'm at a point in my life where I have to be honest. I'm too old to be lying. I work too hard to be lying to people.
So, like, being in a position as mayor, you doesn't make, like, the final decision. It got to be both parties.
You don't, because the mayor, in most cities, there's a city council that oversees the mayor's stuff. So, like with the city of St. Paul, the mayor has a budget, or the mayor has policies, or those sorts of things, and all of our work goes to the mayor, and then the mayor puts it in like a proposal, and then he gives it to the city council to sign off on it. The city council gets to look at that proposal, and they look and they take away things that they don't want, and they sign off on things that they do agree with. So there's a lot of negotiating and back and forth between the mayor and the city council, and I'm kind of like that person that if I make a decision and I'm making the decision that's best for the community, I want that to be the final decision. I don't want anyone to
sign off on it.
Right. I want to be in charge of that.
So, like, the city council and mayor, so they have to come to, like, agreement, or the city council have the last word?
I get the city council ultimately kind of has the last word.
Okay.
But usually there's a lot of negotiating, and, a lot of them, in a lot of cities, the mayor and the city council, they get along really well and they work really well together, and then sometimes they disagree on certain things. So it can be a really strenuous process, and I don't think anybody could ever pay me enough to.
You see yourself in front of city council?
Okay, I'm going to give you an honest answer. I would love to run for city council, but I'm probably not. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that. They have a lot of stuff that they have to do. There's a lot of stuff that they have to read through. A lot of them, this is their second job. This isn't their first job. And there's only so much time in the day, right?
Right.
You have maybe 9 good hours in the day before it's time to, like, sit down with your family, eat something, and go to bed. And I think that it would be hard for me to have a full-time job and then do city council work on the side. Yeah.
So you're big on family?
I'm very big on family.
Yeah, I could see that.
Very big on family. Yep.
What's your relationship with the mayor? Are y'all family or friends, or just work together?
We are not related. Me and Mayor Carter are not related. We did go to the same school. He did graduate a year before me. I do remember him. I think what a lot of people don't know about him is he's really funny.
He is.
And he was in all of the Smart Kid classes. And one of the things that I remember is he was like a jokester. And if I had to look back on it and I had to vote who I thought would be mayor one day, it wouldn't have been Melvin, because he was so funny and kind of goofy, but he was really, really smart. So, yeah. But we're not related. Nope.
Do you have a good relationship, like working together?
We don't work directly together, but we kind of do, but we kind of don't. So in my position, I'm a manager, and I report up to my director, and my director reports up to the city attorney, who reports to the mayor, but then my director also reports to the mayor. So the mayor is very familiar with our work. I have to submit reports to my director to take to the mayor so that he knows what I'm doing and what I'm not doing. So those sorts of things. We're in the same places all the time, and we speak and talk to each other and stuff like that. But no, we don't go hang out and have sandwiches.
What's your favorite thing about your job?
My favorite thing about my job, I will have to say, hands down, is the podcast so far. Yeah, because that's the only time that I get to, like, be creative with my questions and, like, sit down and have conversations with other people about their passion. Yeah, that's probably my favorite part. Everything else is a lot of administrative stuff, and I do like my job, but I think that just being able to sit across from people and have those conversations and go in depth about what they do and how what they're doing affects the city, that's probably, like, my favorite part. It's less formal, right?
I heard you say that you work for the Metro Transit, like public safety. Mm-hmm. Is that the same as, like, St. Paul Police, or is it different?
It's different. So Metro Transit Police Department is governed by the Metropolitan Council. The Metropolitan Council used to be part of the state of Minnesota, but they separated from the state. So they still kind of operate like the state does, but they oversee like housing, all of public transportation, and some other additional things like that. So their jurisdiction is only the buses and the trains and whatever happens on those platforms. The police department is everything outside of those platforms.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you like working for them?
Metro Transit Police Department?
Yeah.
I loved it, actually. Yeah. If I wasn't presented with the opportunity to go work for Department of Public Safety and get that experience at the state level, I would probably would have still been at Metro Transit. It was pretty fun. It was.
What type of, because you said you worked as a dispatcher. Mm-hmm. So what type of toll did that bring to you?
Oh, girl, that's a good question. Public safety dispatching is really, 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 people don't realize how stressful that job is. Hats off to all the public safety dispatchers, because that is like, it's in a way, it's somehow more stressful than actually like being an EMT or being a police officer. And the reason is because you're the first person to hear what's going on. So when you answer the phone and somebody is having an emergency at their home, all you hear is screaming or crying or somebody saying, help me, help me. And it's really, really stressful because you know that person's life depends on how fast you send that message, how fast you talk to that cop and tell them what's going on, how fast you order that ambulance. And that's a lot of pressure because everything you do could save that person's life. And if you don't do something right or you don't get the right location, it's really stressful. And in the dispatching center, they have like 5 different screens that you're looking at. And then you have a pedal that you press, and you have headphones that you wear. So when you answer the phone, 911 emergency, they start talking in your headphones, but then you have to press your pedal, and you're relating that message to the cop. So as soon as they say where they are, that's when you go into action. You have to look on your screen and you have to say, okay, this person's in Stillwater, so I'm going to dispatch a Stillwater cop, and he's free right now because his light is green. So then you're pressing your pedal and you're saying, like, Officer Squad 212, and then he answers up. So then now he's talking in your ear and asking you what's going on, but you have the other person in the other ear telling you what's going on, and then you're pressing this pedal. So every time you press the pedal, it mutes your voice from talking to the victim, and you're now talking to the cop. So whatever she's saying, you're saying to him. And then on top of that, you have to type it at the same time. So you have to be able to type like 70 words per minute.
Dang.
So it's really stressful. And then at the end of the day, once you've talked to the cop and you've pressed the button for the EMT and you've sent the message for the ambulance to get started going to 22 Rogers, and you're telling a cop to go to 22 Rogers, and you're telling the victim, officers are on their way, calm down, ma'am, what can I do to help you? It's crazy. I've delivered 2 babies over the phone. I've had calls where parents have dealt with suicide, come home and saw that. I've dealt with unfortunately, when people wake up and their spouse is no longer breathing. I've talked to people on how to administer CPR. It's heavy. It's really heavy. So it took a horrible toll on me.
Did it bring a lot of trauma to you?
Oh, yeah. I went through a depression after that because you don't realize you're taking all that heavy stuff home. And it made me sad. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's why I ended up having to quit, because I realized it was making me depressed, and I wasn't sleeping. I worked the night shift. My baby was, at the time, my 17-year-old was like 3 months old. It's tough. It's a tough job, but it is a noble job, and hats off to anybody that can do it.
What made you want to work for the city?
What made me want to work for the city? I've always liked municipal government. I will say working for the city is awesome because I won't speak for all cities, but I'll talk about City of St. Paul. City of St. Paul is, with our mayor, he allows us to be very innovative, right? And he's like all for new ideas. I have worked for the county, and I've worked for the state, and now work in the Metropolitan Council, and now the city. And in all of those pieces of government, the city has allowed me to implement the most of my ideas and to like just try things, you know what I mean? And to have a voice. In those other places, I'm supposed to do the work.
So you feel more heard working for the city?
Oh, yeah, definitely. For City of St. Paul, I don't know if it's just the mayor or if it's the City of St. Paul itself, but I feel heard.
Did you work with the previous mayor before Mayor Melvin?
No. I came in on the Carter administration, yep, and this is his second term, so yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What did you learn about yourself working all these other different jobs?
I'll go back to just saying when it's time to be honest. In a lot of jobs, I was asked to do certain things, and it's like, okay, but it's a lot of smoke and mirrors, right? So like people will say, okay, we're going to put you in charge of this, and we're going to allow you to make decisions on this and allow the public to make decisions on this. And then when I got in that position, it was like, no, we're really not going to let you do that. We're going to pretend like you're going to make decisions, and we're going to pretend like we're going to allow the community to make this decision. But really, this is the decision that we want you to make, and that's just it. It's a lot of smoke and mirrors.
So you weren't heard enough?
No, I wasn't heard enough, but it's like, I don't like pretending, right? I don't want you to use me to pretend like we hired you to do a job, but the truth is we just want you to be the face, but really we don't want you to do the job. We're just going to pretend. That's what I don't like. And
so you're basically being seen and not heard.
Yeah, that's it. You know, you kind of feel used. You know what I mean? Like, don't use me as the face so that you guys can like be the puppet master, and I just, you know,
sitting there just looking pretty.
Right, girl. That part. So that's one of the things that I've learned, especially at this age. Now I'm at a point in my life where I just want to be honest. I just want to be honest. I just want to be able to speak my truth and be honest about what's happening.
If you can give like a sincere message to the youth, what would it be?
It would be probably listen. Listen to your parents.
Why you say that?
Because I think when you're young, sometimes you think that your parents really don't know what they're talking about. And I won't speak for all parents, but I will say when you're young, sometimes you really think that your parents don't know what they're talking about. But a lot of times what your parents are not telling you is that because they were your age once, they were going to make those decisions, or they did make the decisions you made, and it really hurt them. So when parents say no to things, it's really because they're trying to protect you. And they don't always say, I'm saying no because I'm trying to protect you, right? They just say no. But the truth is that they're saying no because they're trying to protect you, and they don't want to come out and tell you, hey, I did that, and this is what happened to me. They don't want to admit that they screwed up and that they made mistakes. So they just say no. So I think that that's what I would tell youth is just to listen to your parents and value your life. What you're feeling in the moment is not necessarily what you may be feeling later on in life. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like we were talking about tattoos earlier. Make sure you get something that you are going to live with, that you're going to appreciate when you get 45, 50, 60, 70 years old, right? So every decision that you make in that moment has the ability to affect the rest of your life. So even if you're mad in that moment, don't make a decision that's going to land you somewhere that you might have to spend the rest of your life. You know what I mean? When you're in relationships and your partner might be pressuring you to engage in some sort of activity that you're not really comfortable with, think about that, because what if something happens that affects the rest of your life? You know what I mean? when you're sitting in class and you have that one test to take, but you're just like, screw this, I don't feel like taking that test. Just something as simple as that. Think about that, because that score on that test might land you in this school that you're supposed to, this college that you're supposed to be at, that's going to affect the rest of your life and send you off thriving. So like all of your mistakes, try not to make them. Think about them thoroughly.
For sure.
What is something that you're passionate about?
I don't want to be cliche just because that's what I do, but I am passionate about kids living safe. I really am. I think that because I have 2 kids, I was like a helicopter parent, and I'm still a helicopter parent. Like I track my 22-year-old's location all the time, and I know that he gets home at 9:30. So at 9:30, I pull up his location, and if he's at home, that's when I go to bed. I am so passionate about safety for kids, and I think it's because having been a 911 dispatcher and taking calls with youth and it didn't end well, or working in this field, or just working at the police department and hearing about how our young adults are struggling and the crimes and stuff that are being committed, and the fact that they're like taking each other's lives and stuff like that, I am so overly protective of everything that comes across me that sometimes I find myself trying to tell other people's kids what to do. So my passion is safety. That is just making sure our kids are safe and that they thrive. Like, I'm like so emotionally attached to that. I'm deep in that. But I like interior designing. Yeah, so.
I think we're running out of time. Thank you for joining us today, Lynnaia. I appreciate talking to you and get to knowing you. And we're going to be closing now. I'm Jada Walker.
LayLay.
Jada.